You look a lot younger. You look a lot younger. Listen,
Yeah.
you, from the moment I met you in your tennis wear and teaching tennis, I knew that's what you were doing. And I didn't know if you were going to be able to continue that, but you've done that for over 30 years in Japan.
Yeah.
You're known as Mr. Tennis here.
Yeah.
Your last name is?
Krissman.
Krissman's Tennis.
Yeah, Krissman International.
International.
Yeah,
You have,
yeah. We've been doing that.
When did you start it? And what made you decide to start it?
Oh, well, it's a long story.
Let's do it. And like I said on my last interview
Yeah.
with Ernie Higgins, I love long stories.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Well, I was never expecting to come to Japan. You know, it just happened out of the blue. My brother was in, where was it, Guam, I guess, on a layover. He used to work with Pan Am Airlines.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was on a layover, he met this Japanese man who was lounging around the pool and trying to win over the tennis coach from the Guam resort, saying that he needed a coach to train the coaches in Japan. So my brother went up to the guy and said, "Hey, you know, my brother's a tennis coach well, at that time I was in Mexico. My brother's a tennis coach. You should take a look at him." So he said, "Well, tell me about him." So long story short, they got me an interview with a guy. I flew out to meet him in California, LA. And basically the interview was, "You've done this, I know. Now let's see you beat me on a tennis court."
Well, how old was this guy? How old were you and how old was he?
I was probably 30.
And how old was he?
He was probably 36.
Oh, okay, so a young guy.
Yeah, he was young and he was athletic, and he ran the largest group of tennis schools in Japan.
Okay.
They happened to be called the American Tennis Schools.
Right.
And so he was looking for an American to run the American
He
tennis.
wanted you to run his program?
Yeah, he wanted me to run his program.
What was he gonna do? I mean,
he's a manager. He's like,
okay.
Yeah, he wasn't a teacher by that time.
Okay.
He was a manager and a player before.
Right.
So, you know, went through the interview. I passed with flying colors and beat the guy fairly convincingly. Yeah. And so he said, "You're hired." You know, about a week later, I found myself at the airport in Tokyo, and with my 7 suitcases my whole life.
Okay.
Ready to start a new job.
Now, what had you been doing prior to this?
I was working as a tennis coach, you know, and
Where?
Mexico,
Mexico.
Monterrey, Mexico.
Okay, all right.
I came back from Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in Nebraska where I went to college
Right.
and visiting some friends and everything.
Didn't you have to speak Spanish while you were in Mexico?
Yes.
So you
yes, I
speak
did.
Spanish?
I did before.
Okay.
But I haven't spoken Spanish in 40 years. I don't know, 35 years.
Right.
Yeah, so I did, but I was with one of the largest clubs in Mexico, Sierra Madre Tennis Club,
Okay.
which was like the club, you know. Big
And how long did you work there?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was a great experience. I ran the national junior championships in Mexico,
Mhm.
9 nationally ranked juniors. The club was fantastic. 16 tennis courts with a big stadium court. You know,
Wow.
it was great.
It was a membership club,
It was
obviously.
membership, yeah.
So how many members did it have?
I'd say about 700.
Okay.
But these guys were all top level business people.
I got you, okay.
know,
They were very
Banco
well heeled.
Sofine and you
Yeah,
know
I got
the breweries and all that. Yeah. So it was a great experience. But so I came to Japan not knowing what I was getting into,
Mhm.
you know, and before I knew it, I found myself, you know, going all over Japan, teaching tennis coaches how to teach in the so-called American style of teaching.
Okay, now where in Japan did you come? I mean, where in
I
Japan?
was based in Tokyo.
Okay, you're in Tokyo.
But they would send a driver every morning and say, "We're going to Nagoya today," or the next
So
day.
he was actually literally all over Japan.
He was all over. He had clubs all over the place, and he worked very closely with the Japan Tennis Association.
Uh-huh.
So I was training Japan Tennis Association coaches in the American form of tennis. And at that time, it was an aggressive, attacking type of game,
Okay.
and that's what they wanted to learn.
Okay. Because what they were just more polite in the way they played, just
Yeah,
making
it-
sure that everybody got the volley back.
That's so much the truth of it. They would
Okay.
just rally.
They just rally,
And
and
they'd never
then
go to
they
the
call that a
net.
game.
Yeah, and that was a game. And they would never go to the net. And at that time, you know, Japan didn't have very many ranked players, if
Right.
you remember back 35 years ago. And so I was teaching them basically the pro game.
How to kill.
Yeah.
How to come in there, take him out on the serve.
That's right. Yeah, serve or come up with serve and volley. Serve and volley was big back then.
Really?
Are you a player?
I mean, I played before.
Yeah.
The thing that stopped me is because being a gymnast, I damaged one of my knees.
Yeah.
So I need lateral movement.
Yeah.
You know, I'm afraid of doing that because I already have damage on one of my knees.
Yeah, and that can happen.
But I did play.
Yeah, and in tennis, you
need
do a
it.
lot of split stepping, and
Yes.
to play an aggressive kind of game, particularly,
mhm.
you know, you put a lot of stress.
And
on
also
the body.
age, I understand that you learn to place your shots. You make the other person run.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because as I've become a little bit older, the game has changed completely, and so.
How so?
Well, there came a time about 15 to 18 years ago where the tennis world completely flipped from how they played many years ago, maybe how you learned to play, into the new style of play, which is called the open stance style of play. The players I think it was introduced primarily firstly by Borg, who had a very Western style hold and a lot of wrist over his shots, and he would keep his hips open when he hit, and everybody thought, this is crazy, that's not the way you play. But then came along Nadal and these other players who have just changed the game. Clay court players primarily, but now everything I had learned originally had completely flip-flopped into a new style of play. And
Which
so
is?
Open stance.
Okay, when you stand in front, that's the way they start.
What you do is you stand in here, use your shoulders, turn them, and flip over like that. Where I learned, and you probably learned too, and I taught for many years, stepping in. Step into the ball.
Step in and then boom.
And then hit.
Then up and over.
So the game changed completely, but back when I first came to Japan, the attacking style of attacking, going forward, stepping in was in vogue, and that's what they wanted to learn.
Wow.
You know, so I spent so many months going to these different schools, teaching these tennis coaches a whole new way, not knowing any Japanese, but they asked me to teach it in English.
Okay.
You know.
So they got 2 lessons for
Yes,
one.
English lesson
And a tennis lesson,
yeah.
right? Gotcha.
Yeah, so it was really a very interesting challenge for me.
So during that time, okay, so you were single when you came here?
Yeah.
Had you ever been married?
Yeah, but for a little while.
But you don't even like talking
No,
about
I
that.
don't. That's probably why I left Mexico. But
Oh, so you were married in Mexico?
no, I married, then went to Mexico.
And then went to Mexico,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
Wait, with your wife or without you?
with my wife.
I don't know. You got married today. I'm out here.
Yeah.
And then you went to Mexico.
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about that after.
Okay, let's not talk about it. But anyway, so you came here. How long were you in Japan before you got married?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Did you meet your wife on the tennis court?
No, I met my wife. Actually, I was still training for tennis tournaments back when I first came. So I went to a new gym just when, you know, the X's, have you ever heard
Just
of that?
started. Oh, of
Just
course.
started. They
Just started.
opened
Just
up.
brought that in. Yes.
They just opened their first club in Bell Commons.
Okay,
you know?
yes,
Yeah,
right,
in Aoyama, yeah. So I went there and
Which they just tore down, you know.
Did they really?
Bell Commons is torn down. They have a brand new building they've
I
set up.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow,
that was a landmark.
wow, that was a lot of history. I think I
Shows.
proposed to my wife in that club.
Is that
in
right?
Bell
Bell
Commons.
Commons, right.
But I went to this new gym and I said, I need a workout. I need the toughest trainer you have. And they said, well, that little girl out there who's out there right now, she's our toughest trainer. And I said, you know, here's this petite, you know, thin little girl, and she's just beating the butt on all these people. She's got 100 people on the floor teaching them like an aerobics, like a high-powered aerobics kind of thing.
Right.
And
That's when aerobics was big.
yeah, I mean, it was really good. She was moonlighting. She's a prima ballerina in a ballet company, and she was moonlighting to make some money. And she just loved kicking butt, you know. And that's why she was out there. So I went there and I tried it, you know, and it beat me into the ground. And so I said, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to beat this thing, you know.
It was an aerobic class.
It's aerobics, but it's like
It was like was the equivalent to what they do now. What is it? They have what do you call that?
yeah, like a
Fitness with a you know.
boxing kind of thing. Or
It's not boxing. They do everything. They do everything.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know what they call it now.
Yeah, you know, in tennis we have a kind of thing called cardio tennis,
Okay.
which is a lot of running, a lot of moving, and it's something that's designed to give you a beat your butt kind of workout, you know. So that's what this was, and there were so many men there because it wasn't girly, it wasn't jazzercise or that kind of thing.
Right.
It was tough, and she'd go for an hour, and then she had an hour and a half training too. So that was like 8 in the morning. So that's the one I showed up to. And it's funny that because
CrossFit is what I was thinking of.
cross training.
So it's kind of like that, cross
Yeah,
training.
like cross training, right?
Okay.
Exactly. So there was movement, but there was hit the ground and do push-ups.
So it's very cardio too. It wasn't just muscular. Yeah,
Super cardio, super workout, and great for tennis when I didn't have much time. Didn't have time to get to the tennis courts.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed a workout, so I could get on the train, 2 stations. I'm there and working out. But I didn't speak Japanese, and all of her instructions were in Japanese, so I would have to follow them. So I got right up in front where she was on the stage and tried to follow her. And when she would go one way, I would be going one way, and she'd go the other. And then I would always be late. And she started complaining to the she said,
one person's on the step is
there's this weird gaijin guy, and he's standing right in front of me, and he's doing everything wrong.
She thought you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah. So she thought I was stalking her or something. Believe it or not, they finally the manager came up to me and said, the instructor doesn't want you in this course because you're slow to everything, and you're missing.
And the way you look at her.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of close, I will say, but you know what? I fell in love at first sight, and long story short, I made it that she had to, in order for her to get rid of me, she had to have a coffee with me.
Is that what you said? Really?
That was my price. I said, okay, I'll not come to class anymore, but you have a coffee with me because I'm not a bad guy. I just look bad out there, but I'm not a bad guy. And so on that first coffee we had, believe it or not, I fell in love, and that was it. And so I didn't plan on being married. I had too many things to do. Like, you know how it is when you get here, and there are so many plans and so much ambition, so much business. I mean, we were approached by so many companies for our product.
What year did you come here? What year was it?
End of 82.
You came here too, so I was actually here way before you.
Yeah.
Because I came here in the military in '74.
Yeah.
And got out in '76 and started teaching at the American School in '77.
Wow, you were there.
So I was already here, I'd been here. I came here everyone thinks the time they come here is a golden time.
Yeah.
There's people talking about they came here in 1990 and wow, it was different then.
No, we had a golden time back then, if you remember. I mean,
it was just before the bubble.
Yeah.
It was just before it was busted. I mean, there was anything you did, you made money doing it.
Yeah.
And everybody was willing to put money in anything you said. I'm going to grow coffee beans. It's, how much it cost?
Here it is.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter. That was a golden time.
It really was, and you lived through that time. That's why I said we're the same generation. We've experienced a lot of the same markets and the same changes in Japan. I had so many business opportunities. I was brought out, and I opened up one club, my own club, called Hanegi, I mentioned to you. And then we were offered a resort. We put in a resort in line with a golf club. Seibu department had us open up a school. I mean, there's so many things.
So you never had kids though.
We never had kids, and the sad thing is, as I look back at it, was my wife. She was still involved in ballet and performance, and I was in tennis. And we all said, let's wait until our professional careers are finished.
Okay.
And then
so you wanted kids.
We wanted kids, but we. It sounds terrible to say, but we never found the time to have them.
That was your life.
And then when my wife's career finished, she opened up her own ballet schools. So she had 3-4 schools. We both were teaching hundreds of children a week. We love children, but we love to go home and be able to sit down and have a glass of wine saying, they were so cute, and you remember,
and then that right beside you, daddy, and changing diapers and stuff. So you start thinking, hey, maybe this isn't such a bad life.
It got away from us somehow, but we both love what we do. We both love our jobs. I mean, it's a dream job: ballerina, tennis pro. What else would you want?
And you've been married how many years now?
34 years.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
But it's been great. It's been great.
It's not enough.
Everybody says, marriage is tough and everything. I think we fought twice in our whole life.
I mean, really knocked down when you really felt,
fought, and both of it was over food.
Over food?
Over food. She wanted this, I wanted this, and we said, you always get your way, and we fought
over food.
Over food.
Both times or just?
Both times. Both times was over food.
That's nice.
Yeah, we've always had a great relationship because we're saying a teacher is a teacher. and you can
And you can relate to people.
relate to people.
That's right.
In fact, that when I first opened our program, our little tennis program at TAC, I had her train my tennis coaches because she ran classes of 3-year-olds. She can take a group of 15 and 16 3-year-olds and have them doing exactly what she wants them and control them for 45 minutes to an hour. 3-year-olds.
No, wait.
Yeah.
Now, did she know English when you met her? Or
No.
She
very
learned
little.
it. So now she
learned
speaks
it,
English.
Yeah.
So she's more fluent in English than you are in Japanese.
By far.
Okay.
By far.
right.
And that's my fault. I was
So,
too lazy
so when
to
you guys
learn.
got together, I mean, so she didn't speak much English when you met her.
Yeah.
And you proposed and did all that without speaking the language at all.
Yeah.
And she, well,
It's a language of love, Lance.
Tell me about it.
Language of love. You know what? I did pursue her after that because she gave me an opening. She smiled and I said, "Do you want me to not come to your class anymore?" And she said, "No, you can come." So I thought that was an opening, And I pursued her and I was there every day, because when anybody who's ambitious, when you see what you want, you go after it, right?
that's sweet.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
nice.
So she's been my best traveling
I
companion.
don't know that I've met her. I probably did see, but didn't know she was your wife.
She's still teaching at the American Club, TAC. She's one of the ballet instructors there. She has
But I
ballet
don't go.
class.
I don't see ballet
Yeah, you
class.
don't see ballet.
I think I might have been passing.
She had big schools at the American Embassy.
I used to do the compound
Yeah,
too. I
so
did the
you may
compound.
have seen
I started
it.
there,
Yeah,
and they had this rule at the time where you had to have 25% of their people. I don't know if they still do that,
Yeah,
but that's what it used to be. So we had a program there. They set up.
So and many of our schools were in the same places.
Right,
so
they
we
sure
had-
were. So we
yeah.
always crossed each other,
Yeah.
and I always found you to be very pleasant. And then one time I was speaking with you, and you said, my brother has I told you I love Mexican food.
Yeah,
You said, your
yeah.
brother has a Mexican restaurant. So I went to his restaurant several times.
Yeah,
I sure
it's
did.
such a small world.
It is a
because,
small world.
As I said, he was with the airlines, but then his wife, funny story about his wife.
His wife is also Japanese.
Japanese, and the father is Katsuhiko Haida, who was the original Hawaiian singer. He brought Hawaiian music to Japan, famous for his ukulele songs, and so her family was well known in Japan in that generation, and so.
Is he still married to her?
Yeah, he's still married to her, and they have 2 children. Yeah, they have 2 boys, older.
Well,
men,
the
I guess.
boys, they must be in their 30s or older.
They're in their 30s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Age of my son.
In fact, my nephew Eric just had his first child. Yeah, so I mean, circle of life.
And they're here in Japan.
No, they're in one's in Arizona and the other's in Houston.
Right. No, something else. Now I know you had. I don't know if you want to go into this because I know your tennis program. You had attack for a while and you had an issue during that time because I didn't see you for a while and I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't seen you and I saw someone teaching your class and I figured it was one of your instructors because I don't see you a lot anyway because you have your instructors teaching.
Yeah, that's right.
But then, do you mind talking about that?
I
you
don't
don't have to get into details.
Yeah, I don't want to get into details. It's just a matter of lately, the last few years, 3-4 years, I told you I did a coffee farm and everything. I've been looking to diverse and do other things, right? And so I was looking for somebody to take over the crux of the day-to-day business, with me still as director.
Okay.
So I was grooming a guy, and after a while, the guy turned out to be not as professionally reputable as I hoped he would be, and so we had a little bit of problem there.
Okay.
It was very bothersome because I mentioned to you I don't like conflict. I like things to go and I treat people well. I've always I think this is why people stay with me. Coaches stay with me. I have coaches that are with me 16, 18 years because I treat my coaches as if I were the coach. I treat people the way I want to be treated. And if you treat people decently, then they usually treat you decently. So this man, bent over backwards to bring him into our fold, opened up our whole world to him, and he took advantage of it.
Yeah, they say that.
Yeah.
Some people say that that saying, they say that some people take your kindness as weakness.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But then you found that people and organizations really support you because when you came back, it was my understanding that all the places you were at that you happened to be at, they said, we have an agreement with you.
Yeah, that's
not
exactly
with that
right.
person. And that's something I like about companies that have integrity.
Yeah.
When they have integrity, they understand what you were doing. They knew that you weren't trying to take advantage. They know what type of person you are. And that you were setting it up, so that's good.
With personal relationships, and you do the same thing. I've seen you in business. You actually go and you meet the people, and you become very knowledgeable with the people who run this, and they know you, and they know they can trust you. And I've built personal relationships with everybody because our job is to give the best service we can give. That's what, and if you do that, I think people appreciate that. They appreciate that, and we build long relationships. Most of the clubs I've been at the American Embassy for 27 years, TAC 21, 22 years, ASIJ for over 25 years. You make relationships, and you handle the relationships professionally. You do a good job. You treat people kindly. They would rather deal with you than other people.
I think what I find from what I hear about your program is that you're dealing with each individual. You don't teach it as a group so much. As you get to know the people, you teach them according to what they need.
Yeah, and that's exactly what tennis teaching is.
And you make sure your rapport is good with them so that they can receive it in the way they need to receive it.
Yeah.
Some people want to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
Some people say slow it down, and I just want to volley.
It's so true. Tennis is an individualistic game.
Yeah,
and we teach group lessons, but we teach groups of individuals. And so each person will hear their name called many times, and they'll get point advice, for their particular game. But yet we're doing a group lesson. It's been really successful because we do build a relationship with people. And tennis is the kind of game, I love tennis. You said you played. I love tennis. The kind of game people will play forever.
That's right, they can. I have a good friend, Nick. He's one of my best friends here in Japan. And he's in his 70s. He's almost on his way to his 80s. He's an avid tennis player. I mean, he knows all the greats. He's been around them. He goes out to he goes to Wimbledon. He goes to all of the different meets. And he lives not too far from here. But Nick's one of my good friends, and he loves tennis.
Yeah.
He loves it. His whole family's tennis. His wife and his 2 daughters, and I'm sure his son-in-law. All of them are tennis players. Yeah. You know Tokyo Lawn Tennis.
Yeah.
He's there. He's been on the board. He's part of he's part of tennis.
Well, the great thing about it is it's a lifelong game, and anybody in your family is, you can go out and hit with them. Yes. You've got a son that's 4 or 5 years old. You can take him out and hit with them.
That's right.
You got a wife plays, and a son, daughter. You got family doubles. Yeah. It's a great sport.
Well, I'm hoping to get my knee repaired in a way that I'll be able to do that. Right now, I'm not confident enough. I think it's just like even in anything that's physical with my legs, if it's sharp movements any direction, I'm a little careful because it doesn't take much to damage it. So I want to, if I can get stem cell, or they come up with some sort of fiber, because I wear a brace on it whenever I'm walking. I walk in the mornings, and I built up the muscles around it. But I'm just concerned. I want to play tennis. Yeah. I used to be really good in racquetball. Now, racquetball. Yeah. Inside the little court. That was my sport, and it's the same as tennis. Well, but even more, because you really are fast.
You're so athletic, you can pick up any sport. It's funny you should say that, because my new project, and it's kind of a secret project, but I've been working on it and building up.
You want to tell it now?
I can talk about it, but it won't be true for another few years.
Okay, right.
But I've been working on the technique of teaching tennis to people who are a little bit older and don't move the same way. Right. Because I hurt my knees a few years ago too. Being on the court for 40 years won't do it.
Just back
and I find the way. I was just out with our coaches yesterday. Our new head coach is a guy who's a Princeton doubles champion. He was an NCAA champion at doubles, and I was on the court trying to hit with him in a doubles match, and I realized that I don't have the reflexes I had way back when. I don't have the movement. And so I have to play tennis in a different way, and I'm formulating that way, and I'm going to call it vintage tennis, where people can move and cut off angles and not have to run, but move to the angles of the return of the ball. Anticipation, and the way you play it with more spins and more control rather than power. Right. And there's a way to be done where we can get 70 and 80-year-old people who don't move as well, who have, like you and I, maybe bad knees, but they can still play a good game by not overdoing it.
That's right.
Still can win, you know. Although I didn't beat my coach yesterday, I was trying some of the techniques, and some of them can work. You know. So.
Well, I think if you talk with Nick, I'll introduce you to him, and maybe you can go. Have you been over to the Tokyo Mountains?
Yeah, I used to go.
So like, I've seen the guys over there, and these guys are up in that age bracket, and they're playing well too. Yeah. So I mean, there's no joke. They know how to cut off the angles. They know how to get you, they know how to lob it over and make you run up to the net, and they really seem to know.
A lot of people seem surprised that there's so many older people playing tennis. 2 years ago, there came out a study in Tennis Magazine, which is the worldwide magazine that goes mostly to consumers. And they had a study in there that they studied a lot of the sports and how it affects longevity. And they found out, and this is no lie, this isn't promotion, they found out that people who play tennis twice a week added a minimum of 7 years to their life.
Imagine they would, yeah.
7 years to their life. And it was about movement, but it was also about the cognitive
those angles, those angles, that anticipation, everything else.
They're thinking about it, and then the last part of that was the social ability, being involved with other people. It gives you longer life. And so I say to most of our students, you're paying for a lesson, but you're getting 7 more years.
You're right, if you continue this. If you continue it.
If you continue it, you know. So I mean, I hope to be playing a long time, and that's why I'm working on this new technique, because I know the knees are not going to allow me to play into my 80s the way I used to play.
Unless technology makes it so. Because that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm thinking. You know, I might be able to go someplace, and if stem cell surgery gets better and better, or whatever, some technique where I can just clamp on something that maybe it could have little motors in it, and it adjusts my knees so that I don't have to worry about it, and I can do all the lateral movements I want to make. But that'd help me in my field too, what I like, gymnastics. I think about that. There's things I just won't do. It has nothing to do with fear, because I think you have to be, in my field as a gymnast, you have to be a little off anyway. To want to flip around backwards. And you can't be normal. Why would you do something like that? When the possibilities of you end up becoming a paraplegic are so close. Why would you do that? And the thing that used to also tickle me so much is when they started calling sports extremist sports. You know when they start calling that? As soon as the guy's on a bicycle and does a backflip on it.
Oh yeah.
Well, then that means gymnastics has always been an extreme sport.
I thought so.
But I've always loved it. When I saw that, I knew that's something I was going to do for the rest of my life.
But I always looked at your sport and I thought, I loved it. I love what you could do with your body out there. But I couldn't imagine myself doing it. You know, it's just, to me, it was for somebody extra special who had that ability. But I saw in your program, you teach the kids that, you give them that.
It's not about this. It's not about the skill so much. It's about your attitude. And like in your sport, if you have the right attitude, like you're teaching individuals, they'll automatically start to excel in that sport. Whatever it is. It's not the sport. It's your attitude and how it's taught to you. If you take it right and you learn to have a certain respect for it and discipline with it, you can apply that to anything. But so many people, as we know, we've seen them come and go here, they teach the sport. That's all they do. They don't last very long. If that's all you're working on, you know, and I'm sure as your wife knows, if she's just teaching ballet, you're not going to keep anyone. You've got to teach the person. And that's what we've learned to do as teachers.
As teachers, we teach not only that, but we teach discipline.
Exactly.
And that bit about winning and losing, sportsmanship. Very important.
And we've watched society change from a timeout, from spankings that we got, that's right. And neighbors being able to do it too if they knew you. To where you can't touch the kids and you give them a timeout. And we have to work with these kids. There's a saying I used to use all the time, Alan, with the kids that were unruly. I would ask them, and I had an answer for whatever way they answered me. They only had 1 or 2 ways to get an answer. I'd say, do you do that with your mom and dad? If they said yes, I'd say, well, I'm not your mom or your dad. And if they said no, I'd say, well, what would make you think you can do it with me?
I think that's so
every single time. And I love working with kids because they're sincere, they're learning.
Yeah.
You have, for the most part, a blank slate,
Yeah.
and they're trying to figure things out. So that's why I enjoy them, because they don't have any facades.
Yeah.
I went to this school, or I make this much money, or I'm in this position.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're telling you the truth, which is in that adult as well.
Yeah.
But they have all these facades
Yeah.
because they got awarded this or awarded that, and they think that made them somebody.
Yeah.
You're still the same person.
Yeah.
You just got awarded that. You're the same little kid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I agree with you. In fact, I prefer when we start new lesson sessions, I would prefer to take the raw beginners. I love that blank slate.
Because you know it's true.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know they're not going to try to put on some air that
Yeah.
okay, now I have to get through that first before I can start teaching this guy
Yeah.
or this girl.
Yeah.
And that's why we take them up to age 10 because, well, one thing, because of their size. That's increasing because of the diet we're getting from all this processed foods.
Yeah.
I used to blame the people, but I can't anymore. It's the food industry.
Yeah.
If they're giving you food that your body can't process, of course it's going to store it in ways that aren't going to be easy for you to get rid of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we take the kids up to age 10 because we don't have to deal through the other things.
Yeah.
They haven't developed it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So do you have like in our sports we start them at 3, sometimes 2.5, and when we get to a certain point, then they want to excel, then they want more, but then you get to the point where you have what I call the tennis parent phase, where you get a child who really has potential, but the parents are pushing them too much, and we have to put ourselves in a position where do we want to let the parent get involved or do we keep the parent away? I never preferred that kind of teaching. I always liked the kids who are there for the joy of it, for the love of it, for the experience of it. But when you get to a certain area, because we have kids who, well, we do the varsity program at ASIJ, we have good kids who want to play, but we have some kids are being pressured, a Serena Williams kind of family who pressures their kids beyond what they should be. So I thought to myself that I'm trying to pull myself away from that level, letting our top coaches teach that, because I don't enjoy it as much. Have you experienced that with the top
Ours,
athletes?
the way that we handle that, we used to let parents come in and watch their kids do the skills, because most of the parents that we have they don't have a cartwheel, they can't do the skills. But what we saw is that they would tend to get tense if they saw their kids doing things they were fearful of, but their kids don't know any fear with it.
Yeah.
So, and I believe in ESP, I believe in telepathy. I think you can sense it and not even have to be with them. I think it's, I really believe in that. So I think having a parent there, nervous, makes the child nervous, even if they haven't seen the parents, they just get it. So we let the parents, ours starts from walking to age 3. Parents must be with the kids. And in those courses, we're not teaching the kids.
You're teaching the parents, huh?
But it's easier to bring them in to let them understand if they have their kids with them. So I talk to the kids, but I'm talking to that parent. I say, watch me. One voice. I want one person to talk to this child, not 2. But if you want to be the one to talk to them, then you talk to them. And then we do that kind of thing. When they get older, we don't have, it's a little bit different with ours, like I said at the beginning. I teach the parents, your kids can only listen to one of you at a time. Watch how I teach. It's my expressions that are teaching more than my words. The kids don't understand my words yet. But if I go, they get that. And if I go, they understand that. You teach with your expressions, but you do that with adults as well too. They're always looking at your expressions, your hand movements, your body posture, your nails. They're doing the same thing, but they do it in a more covert way. They look when they think you're not looking. They try to see, did that guy smell? Is he doing like this one? He's offering me a deal. So that's how we do it. That's ours is just a little bit different. But I see what you're saying about having the parents get involved. But I think one way to handle that, I think, is just to let them know ahead of time. And I've told parents before, if I think, I'll ask the kids in my class if they're older, are you being forced to come here? If they say yes, then I say, okay, I'll talk with your parents. And I tell their parents, your kids really aren't that interested in doing this. You need to find something they're interested in doing. They're not interested. Because also it's not good for an instructor That's not our job to try to make the kids want to do the program. They have to come in with that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Now I can show you how. You don't say, you're going to learn how to do physics regardless if you want to or not, because that's what I do. You don't. You're going to ride this horse because I'm a horseback rider. You don't. No.
Yeah.
They have to come in wanting to learn physics.
Yeah.
They have to come in wanting to ride the horse. They're not afraid of it. So that's how we take it.
Yeah.
And I just tell them, I'm sorry, we don't want your child in the program.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
We'd love to have them if they wanted to be in it.
Yeah.
But if they don't, I discourage them from doing it because then they start disliking the sport. It has nothing to do with the sport. It's your feelings about it.
Yeah.
The sport's a lovely sport, whatever it may be. Curling.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I'm going to learn to curl no matter what.
Would you like to be a curling coach? Well, I had to change my way of thinking about teaching tennis when I came to Japan, because
First of all, yours was communication. You didn't have the communication, so you had to be pretty much
physical,
a pantomimist.
Very physical. But it wasn't just that, because when I left Mexico, it was a national program. We had nationally ranked kids. It was a top-notch program. Courts all over the place. I'm from Southern California. We have courts at every park.
Yeah, you were born where? Where?
In LA.
LA?
So no, I was actually born in Sacramento, but I grew up in LA.
Where in LA?
North Hollywood.
Oh, but see, we're so close. What high school? You grew up, you went to school, and you went to high school in LA?
I went to high school in LA.
What high school did you
went
go
to? High school.
Huntington Park.
Yeah, Huntington
we didn't
Park.
compete against you. So you were in the Northern League? What was your league?
Yeah,
you were in the Southern League.
Yeah, I think it was Carrot Valley League or something.
Okay,
like
okay.
that.
Because we didn't. I don't
Yeah.
think we competed against one of our frenemies was Chatsworth. You remember Chatsworth?
I've heard.
Very,
Chatsworth,
very.
yeah.
That's where they did Dobie Gillis and all those TV shows. Chatsworth,
yeah.
where they had the wealthy kids. We went there, and that was the first time in my life I ever felt poor.
Yeah,
And we went to compete against them.
yeah.
God, I realized there's a big gap between what they had, and what we had.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm from LA too.
Yeah,
But I'm
that's
from. Yeah.
In my area, though, in my school area, all the schools were poor. I mean, we had Bell, we had
Was it heavily Hispanic area?
Hispanic. Yeah, it was a changing neighborhood.
Okay.
It was a changing
That's most of those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's always are. The immigrants, people come.
I went back, and most of in Huntington Park now, most of the shops are tiendas.
Oh, what?
They're Mexican markets.
Mexican, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, my neighborhood was black.
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up, we had white people in the neighborhood. They all moved out to Pasadena. Pasadena, Palos Verdes. They went out to those areas. And blacks moved in. Then you'd have Hispanics here and Japanese over in this area. There weren't many Koreans. You had Japanese up in this area, up in the Crenshaw area, and we were by USC in that area. Then you had Mexicans were in East LA.
Yeah, that's the area where our school.
That's where we East LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yes, I know your schools. Yes,
Bell and
Bell
Gage and
yes.
What other schools were there? Huntington Park.
Yeah.
But imagine at that time, and this was a lot of years ago, playing tennis was not considered a very manly sport back then.
Well, neither was gymnastics. Neither was gymnastics.
Yeah.
That's right. Because in manual arts, our team was the team that put masculinity into gymnastics.
Yeah.
Because they said, well, first of all, in California, they said there's only two types of Californians, gay and motorcycle rider. I made sure I got a motorcycle rider. I made sure I got a motorcycle. But that at that time, because LA was so liberal, we had Griffith Park.
Yeah.
We had all these good areas to go to. We had we had the museum, the county museum, National Museum of Art.
We did some field trip there.
Oh yeah, we had all that. Well, I lived by that area.
Yeah.
So all that area now is all Hispanic.
Yeah.
That whole area, but it was black. It was white, and just as I moved in the 50s, I was born in 52, so growing up I remember white neighbors, and then they moved out, and there was upper income black.
Yeah.
Because we had two-story homes, everybody had a job, nobody had fences around their lawn, we had beautiful lawns, we used to run from one corner to the other corner, jumping over the sidewalks that came between the lawns.
Yeah.
That's how it was, and we rode our bicycles down there on Christmas, and it was.
You sound like a rich neighborhood.
It was considered upper middle class.
Yeah.
Palm trees lined it, but let me tell you what happened. Then they cut them down in the early 80s and put a park up, and that's when these pumped a lot of drugs into to black areas
Yeah.
and lower income areas.
Yeah.
The drugs started popping up.
Yeah.
Because there was, my first bank account was in the bank down the street, Bank of America. And I walked to this, I remember my father put all of my change in my pockets, and I had to be maybe 6 years old. And he watched me as I walked down one block, the next block, and there was the bank on Adams Avenue in Halldale.
I know those, yeah.
Adams and Halldale.
Yeah.
There's Bank of America. I go up there, and my father gave me a note. I gave it to him. He said, "So you want to start a bank account?" And everybody was white.
Yeah.
And I took my money out, and they came around. They thought I was so cute, and they took it and counted all my pennies and my nickels, and gave me a little green bank book and put how much I had in there, $10 or whatever it was worth of coins. And I came home and I was so proud of it. And then all of a sudden, the bank's gone, and just everything I want. But we had a Chinese restaurant. Everything was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trolley cars
Oh yeah. Yeah.
went down Adam Boulevard.
Yeah.
Right down there, so all that. And I watched it change.
Yeah.
The palm trees, they cut them all down.
Yeah.
But we grew up with that.
Yeah.
Palm trees, they
I was down in, you remember area by Florence Avenue?
I know
Yeah,
Florence.
yeah.
Florence.
That's where we were, right off of Florence.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was I would say a poor area. And my father, who was, a white guy, and we were living in a kind of a Mexican-American area.
Your mother was from Spain.
Yeah, mother was from Spain,
Spain.
father's Polish, but they divorced early.
But everyone did.
Yeah, yeah.
In those days,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
60s, they get divorced.
Yeah, yeah.
Because women were starting to get jobs. And,
Independent.
they were independent,
Yeah,
so they weren't putting up with it anymore.
That's right.
And they all divorced. So you stayed with your mother or your father?
I stayed with my mother, but I used to go with my father. Typical story, father for summers. And so eventually, one summer I decided I didn't want to leave anymore. So I started bawling, and my father started bawling, and my mother said, "Okay, you stay with your father then."
Your father started crying too? He wanted to keep you?
Yeah.
Well, what about your brother?
Well, he had no say in the matter.
He stayed with your mother?
Yeah, stayed with the mother. Yeah.
Well, how far did your father stay in LA?
Yeah, my father was in this area by Florence in LA.
Okay,
and my mom was up in North Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was I mean, socially it was probably one step up where my mother lived, right?
Okay.
But so I didn't, my father and I, we didn't have much. We lived in a small apartment and everything. In fact, people find it interesting, the story of how I began tennis.
How'd you begin?
Because it was over one Christmas. We had no money for toys or anything like that. But a knock on the door Christmas Day, and a man who lived in the kind of apartment building that we lived in, I had seen him before, he presented me with a tennis racket. He was a sales rep for Spalding. And he said, "I noticed that you're in, and I wanted to give you this present." And it was the only present I had. I mean, the only present I got that year, this Spalding Pancho Gonzalez model. You remember Pancho Gonzalez? You know that name?
I remember the name.
Yeah, so it's Pancho Gonzalez model from Spalding. And I loved it, but we had no money for tennis balls. So I went to the park and I looked in the bushes and I found some tennis balls. And I took that racket and I started hitting up against the wall. And finally I got good enough where some of the old guys who were playing there asked me to have a hit. And they started teaching me, these old guys,
How old were you during this time? Were you in your teens? Or
10,
were you
11, yeah. 10, 11, just started hitting. And then my father, who had very little money, scraped together enough for a private lesson. I remember it was $5 for a private lesson. Scraped together and got me a private lesson. Vince Gilbert, I remember the coach, the first coach I ever took a lesson from. And he said, "Yeah, you could play, you just need to practice," he said. And he told me what I was doing right, told me what I was doing wrong. I started practicing and became, my freshman year, became high school #1 singles in the varsity.
Your father, he started wailing again.
Yeah, and left from there. But all from my father's love to be able to put together the money to get a lesson, and from the kindness of the Spalding man. In fact, when I first got into Japan, the first thing I did was look into the Spalding rep here, and I said, "This is my story. I want to promote your rackets." I used Spalding and Spalding bags. And I did, for the first 5 years I was in Japan, I promoted them. And then Spalding went on to the tennis business all over. Yeah. And so that was that. But
But your father, so is your father still alive?
No, my father passed away very early.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
How old were you when he passed?
He was 56 when he passed. But he was a smoker from that generation.
Cancer, of course.
Yeah, in that generation, 2 packs a day, man.
Yeah.
You walk in the house.
Everyone did. That was, yeah.
The good thing about that was it put me off from ever smoking.
Same here. My father used to smoke. We had in the car, and it'd always be a misty day, sometime early in the morning. And he started smoking, and I remember being 5 or 6 or something, and he started smoking, and it started accumulating up on the roof and coming down like this, and I get lower and lower, and I said, when I get old, I'm never gonna do this to my kids.
Yeah.
And he wasn't being mean or anything, but he'd sit, and I'm just, and you couldn't roll down the window because it was too cold or something at the time. It seemed like, oh, I hated that.
It was a terrible habit,
So
and
never.
you know, and yeah.
But they didn't know. Come on, and there was the air.
Yeah, that was the time where they said, smoke them if you got them, you know.
The Marlboro Man. Come
Yeah.
on, who didn't want to be the Marlboro Man?
Yeah, that's right, that's right. But you know, our fathers probably saved our lives, you know, at that
They sure
time.
did.
So yeah, that kind of thing. And
So
I
what
wanted,
happened? How old were you when he passed?
I don't know, maybe
Were you still living with him?
20, yeah, no, I was
You'd already
away
moved
at
out.
that time. Yeah, I was away. I went to school in Nebraska, so I was in Nebraska.
yeah.
So I came back, and I stayed with him, you know. And the problem is that I stayed with him a couple of weeks, and then the week I left to get back to school, that's when he passed away.
He wasn't in the hospital already?
He was in the hospital. I went to the hospital. He was in
What
the
about
hospital.
your brother? He never lived with your father?
No, I never lived with my father. Yeah, you know, so that was kind of a sad thing. That's the problem with
Divorces, yeah,
divorces, you know.
So your mom. So what about your mom? Did she?
She had remarried, and
She's still doing okay?
No, we lost her to COVID, and
Are you kidding me? Really?
in February.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry. to hear
First,
that.
probably one of the first kind of cases. Yeah, so that was a.
Is
tough
she still
thing.
in LA?
She was in Arizona, retired.
Okay.
She was in a retirement
So
home.
she was what? How old was she when she?
88.
88.
Yeah.
And she died because of COVID.
Yeah, well,
Respiratory.
It was
She got pneumonia.
respiratory, and they weren't calling it COVID at that
At
time.
the time.
Yeah.
And when did she die? When was it?
February
Last
4th
year.
or something. Yeah, so it was at the beginning of that.
I mean, this year, yeah. So.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a sad thing. But you know, as I said, circle of life. She passed away, and then now we have my new nephew, or new niece, Izzy, was born to my nephew. So yeah, so that was sad. But you know, the great thing about sports, and you probably find it, is it's kept me alive. It's kept me active. I mean, even during this time of COVID, well, they closed all of our schools.
Didn't they? And decreased your numbers of people. But I don't. You're doing other things outside of your sports, aren't you?
I have been.
For income, you do other stuff.
Not for income, for enjoyment. I mean,
Enjoyment.
we know each other, so you know that my business hasn't been growth. I've never been driven by the money.
Same
I've
here.
always been driven by the love of the sport.
Same here.
And I love my free time.
Matter of fact, because I got involved in other businesses, I had the largest used scanner business in Japan. I used to buy used CT scanners in Japan, so I did that for 10 years. And a lot of the funds I have from that I got from doing that, I invested in the program so I could continue it. So it never mattered to me what happened, because only one time I thought about the numbers when I was a teacher at the American school. And I taught PE there, and I had to do a parent-teacher conference. I was a PE teacher at the American school for 3 years. Yeah. They hired me there from 77 to 80 at the main campus in Chofu. And that's when I saw Peter Burwash. He came there to give a little demonstration. I thought that was so neat. Yeah, and I met him in person last year, year before last, at the West Hotel. We came there and talked. He's older now, of course, but he came there. When I was there during that time, they had this parent-teacher conferences, and during that time, I'd have to take, because I was an elementary school PE teacher, the first grade to the sixth grade, so that meant about 100 kids at the same time in the gym. And I had the kids, but they knew me because I taught each one of the classes how to get in line. I said, get in line, So I'm teaching about, let's say 100 kids or 80 kids. And I'm thinking, each one of these kids, if they paid me $1,000 a year, that'd be
thinking about that,
I thought, that's the only time I ever thought about it. And I thought, why am I doing this when I have someone over me? When I could be doing this on my own. But I never liked that feeling. Because That lasted for a very short time, where I thought, because you really can't make it off of that and really teach, because you have to give more than any amount of time.
Yeah.
You're invested emotionally.
Yeah, that's right.
So it changes from that. So like I said, that was a very short-lived thought about money.
Yeah.
But because I'm willing to do so much for it, I ended up putting so much in it.
Yeah.
One time I had like 15 to 20 instructors.
Yeah, I remember you were really
Couldn't make any money with that,
Yeah.
but I was paying each one of those instructors
Yeah.
from my other businesses.
Yeah.
And it's something I want to do all my life because I love working with kids, because I feel like we're youth vampires.
Youth vampires, yeah. Getting our energy from them.
Yeah, because they're true, they're honest.
Yeah.
They keep you vitalized.
Yeah.
You know, they're teaching you as much as you're teaching them. And you're saying, let me pass some of this information over to you,
Yeah.
and let's see which way is palatable to you,
Mm.
which way is best for you to get it. Because I know I have a lot of ways of teaching it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've learned.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's really sad when they get rid of older teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need that know how to teach.
Yeah. A teacher, is important. It's not a businessman. A teacher is caring more about the student than he is about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I got turned off about the money thing right away when I came to Japan, because at that time that was a boom. That was tennis boom back when I first came here. One of the people I worked with, one of the top executives and had major amount of schools, had me going and training their coaches. And I noticed on the courts there were like 30 people on a court. 30 people on a court, and they'd have two guys who they called invitees, or invitos, hitting balls, and they'd say, hi, hi, hi. Well, I sat down and watched one of these lessons, and I noticed that each person hit the amount of 60 balls during that hour lesson. 60 balls. Then they would walk around, run around, pick up balls, and get back in the end of the line. I said, they're not learning tennis. And so I talked to the owner of the company, and I said, you got 30 people on there, they're not learning any tennis. We need to cut the numbers down. We need to get it down to 8 or 10. And he says, no, wait. You can't make any money that way. And I said, but you'll make money if they're learning the sport and then they want to continue on.
And I said, business, yeah.
And I brought him out there. I said, look at this. So we watched for 5 minutes, and he says, tell me, do you hear anybody complaining? And I said, I knew I had to open my own company. My own company was to be concerned with the student first. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about the money. If only 3 students show up, I teach those students.
I used to listen to a lot of motivational speakers. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I listened to one where he told me that he was used to giving speeches to big groups.
Yeah.
And one time he came to this school, and where he was promised maybe 100 kids or so, only 5 came. Mm-hmm. And he gave a lackluster speech because he was a little disappointed. Yeah. And one of the students came up to him and said, I expected more from you. Mm-hmm. And he said from that point on, he taught one person the same way he'd do 100. Yeah. And me hearing that said, I will always be the same way. I'll treat one person the way I would 100. Of course, the dynamics are different. Yeah. You can play with a bigger audience, but your sincerity and your willingness to give them as much information that they can use is still there, and you have to do that. So I look at it this way now, and this COVID thing, in a way, I've liked it. You know why? Because I have smaller groups. Yeah, yeah. I'm forced to and it's really good in a way. The thing I haven't learned to. I'm not adjusted to so much as they can't see my expression. Yeah. But kids are good. They can tell through your eyes. Yeah. We can't yet. Yeah. But they can. Yeah. And I took off my mask one time and said, Mr. It looks funny. Because they hadn't seen my face. All my face. So.
Well, I think that's where the energy vampire thing comes in, because during the COVID, when we weren't teaching, I missed the interaction with the kids. I missed the interaction.
Did you try to do it online? No, you can't.
Yes. We tried a video. We tried a video for TAC, and we just couldn't. It just didn't have the feeling. You
need that.
Yeah, the interaction.
You
right? Do. And so I was really missing that, and I missed my ladies. I have great ladies groups, and I love to be there more than they love to be there. I think, because we're talking and we're joking, and they're learning lessons and they're getting exercise.
And you can see it every time
And
they
you
get
can
it.
see
They
it,
get
yeah.
that one swing. You go, yeah.
Yeah,
For them, it means something, but for you, it's number 50,000.
yeah, yeah.
But still, you don't do that to them and act like it's not. You act like it's the first time for you, and it makes them feel so good.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about it, because each student is unique. And so that's a unique experience I'm having. It's a group lesson, but I'm experiencing that single each person and getting to interact with them. I love it, and I missed it during this COVID. I really missed it, and I'm a very active person like you. I need my exercise, so I had to get out, and I just got out of the house, and started walking around. I couldn't teach. I had to walk around, walk for hours just to get exercise, you know. And then so when we started teaching smaller numbers, I really appreciated it even more. You know, as you said, 3, 4 students. I love it.
It's easy because you're used to doing. You really can't get to all of them. You want to, and you want to get more. But this is like you're forced into private lessons.
Yeah,
It's kind of good.
Yeah, it is, and I'm at the point now where it's more important to me than the money part of it.
That's right.
And now, as part of my movement away from my tennis life, I've been trying to do new things. I'm trying to get involved. You've done different businesses all your life. For me, it's just a new experience because all I've done is tennis over the last 40 years.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I love it. I don't want to leave it. But, you know, you've got to experience other parts of life.
You know what I'm thinking? There's something you might want to do. I'm going to wrap this up. I think the thing that you might want to do, and you think about doing a book. I'll tell you how I've been doing mine. My second book should be finished shortly. You know, with illustrations you could do for kids, you could do for adults. And that leaves some of that energy that I see in you that I think that is so important for people, because I ask people all the time, how many teachers in your life do you really remember that you thought were fantastic? And then the people might say 2. And I say, how many teachers did you have? So if only 2 inspired you. What were the rest doing? They sure weren't inspiring you. So isn't that the reason why so many of us become mediocre in what we're doing? Because we didn't have enthusiastic teachers. We didn't have people that were doing things. I think when people look at you and see the life you're living and the way that you handle yourself, and there's nothing wrong with not liking conflict. I think you shouldn't like it. You know what, you get used to that. Someone told me you need to learn conflict. I don't know. We're trying to avoid that. We come in life. I think you're perfectly right about not liking her. That's normal. Don't like it. But I think the way that you've been teaching, the way that you continue to teach is inspirational. You should continue to. And that's why I do this. So that people can hear that, because not everyone knows it, except for the people teaching with, you know, that have been taught by you, teaching with you. Anything that you'd like to add before we end this?
No, I just enjoyed talking to you. As I said, we've known each other so long, but we've never actually sat down and talked about it and told each other our stories. You know? So I enjoyed it. You made me feel very comfortable. I hope whoever watches this gets something from it, but maybe we'll see them on the court.
You probably will.
Yeah.
With that, man, all the best.
Thank you.
And we'll do this again.
Yeah.
When should we do it?